Welcome to the monthly Lopolight newscast. We're so happy to have you. We have a lot of what we think is interesting news, and what I promise you is, one, we'll try to keep it short. That's a promise from me. I cannot vouch for Peter totally, but we talked about it to keep it short. Two, there will be a follow-up of this webinar, because there will be a number of subjects we will be touching on with the NLC that is that begs to have a deeper answer and a deeper explanation. I'm certain that about 90% of the attendees today will be grateful for not being subject to this detail, because we will not understand it. That includes me. The right people will understand. Third is that we are in a pretty envious situation at the moment, as you probably heard from everybody of your suppliers and your collaborators and yourselves, is that getting stuff today is a hassle, we are also in that problem. We seem to be solving it in a little more satisfactory manner than some of our competitors, and that means that yes, we have longer lead times. There might be 6 and 8 weeks. But we're still counting in weeks and not months, which we heard that some of our competitors are. Looking forward, we yesterday just placed orders for electronics for use in 2022, and that was not a minute too soon. We are, we're brimming over with stuff, and then yesterday we got delivery of the missing part for the new 360-degree lights, and that was only the beginning. Where I think we got 300 parts for 300 lights yesterday, and I think we're getting for something like 800 lights on Monday. So we should be in a good position to fulfill your orders. For those who have seen delays due to this, I apologize. We are working overtime to get those delays fixed. And sales-wise, Lopolight is doing fantastically. Thank you very much. We're so happy to have you sell our stuff, because it seems to be working. We're winning extraordinary customers these days. I'm hesitant of bragging, but nevertheless, I believe we will strike a record next week, where a big ferry will be refitted in 6 hours. Yes, 6 hours. That's what it takes to take a existing working nav light system off a ferry, and 6 hours later it will have a working Lopolight system. So that's something we hope to give you a very good story about in a next newscast. I'll just switch screens here, and you saw the. Oh, come on, yeah. I need to find the right presentation. You saw in the newsletter a slight adjustment to the 180-degree lights that we have been showing you earlier. Just kill my camera so that you can see better. So this is the final iteration. What we're happy to say is that the design has is more compact than today's. It's easier to mount, and you can even say that it's more elegant. It's quite intricate, the design behind it. It allows to be stacked, and compared to what you've seen before, it's even more compact. The connection for the stack light is not a backplate as we're used to, but some latches that you have, you can see in the picture here, and a screw insert on the front that is invisible. So pretty nice. And we are about to start the machining of these, and have agreed a fast track system. But the whole of June will be taken up by producing not only the aluminum but also the lenses. So there will be a month where we cannot deliver any vertical mount 180-degree lens. Some time ago you saw this funny stern light with a deck light option on it, and it was driven by a customer who wanted the light in onto their dinghy garage, and due to petrol in the garage they could not have any light or any electricity in there, so this made the trick. 6 watts, quite intense, and potentially a seller for you. We are conscious that there's a number of customers who already have a stern light. It can be obviously the latest generation, the 30106, or even the 301-106, where you basically switch the screen, can where you basically can imagine that where the cover normally sits, this deck light combination, oops, it was longer the screw than I thought. So basically, take off the cover of the existing stern light, and in today's iteration the cover sits downwards, so that's not a problem. And then latch on to that. With the kit there's 2 screws, and the screw holes for the cover holds it, and then it's only the powering left, and it's quite straightforward, and you will have a happy customer. The pricing of it is very close to the price differential between those 2 lights. A new version of the prices will come out very soon. If a customer has the old version of the stern light, you remember the old version where it has the exact outer dimensions, but the cover sits on the top, and there's an option. They might be slightly awkward, but there's an option for them to just rotate it. From a colorec perspective and legality, that's perfectly okay. It's a symmetrical light. The holes and the cables might be slightly inconvenient, but then the whole thing can be also applied to the older models, the 300-006. So a nice little extra sales option here in the period where the boats are in the water, but the vacation season is not quite started yet. In the design department, we've hired a new designer, as you saw a picture in the newsletter, and he's training with Paul, and basically it means that in the future we will have 1.5 designers, where Paul is sort of acting as a design director, and Thomas is his right hand. Basically acknowledging the importance of being able to deliver on drawings, data sheets, explosion drawings, renderings. The child has many names, and it's just really important. There's a long list of jobs for the young man to perform when he's out of training. On Tuesday, we will have another new employee. Heidi is joining us, as I wrote a couple of emails, newsletters ago. We're continuously hiring. We just today took a decision of hiring one more. And it's a reflection on that we want to keep servicing you guys with short delivery times and high quality products. So shifting gear quite a bit, as you saw in the newsletter, and you have heard possibly a number of times, is that we have a new way of approaching our navigation light controllers. For those of you who were well versed in the past, we had one part number that gave you a full NLC solution with a push button panel and NLC box and power supplies and the whole bit. With the proliferation of options, the number of part numbers was not increasing; it was exploding. And to curb that, we decided to do the ordering process in 3 simple steps. It's all described pretty well in this brochure that you can find on the net, on the NLC brochure. What it basically says is that the first step you have to go through is to choose your power supply. And you can go the high route. The high route is the more elaborate type-approved, wheel-marked Phoenix power supplies that comes in what we call a full-size package. If you choose that set of power supplies, you can choose either AC with a backup AC power supply. You can choose AC or DC input powers, and you could, I believe, and get also DC-DC, and that full-size framework defined by the power supplies will allow us to put 28 light relays on that full size. If you say, nah, I don't need the class approval or the wheelmark approval, I'm okay with class approval, so I'm taking a step back on the approval side, and I have DC, and I want something that is more compact. Then you choose the compact size, and that has either no power supply. So basically, we provide a framework, and the onboard power supply powers the NLC. Or you can have a DC-DC converter, a Victron, 5 amp, small blue box, high quality, or 2 of those with a automatic switchover between primary and secondary. The compact allows for 14 lights. If you want more than that, there will be another motherboard following. But that's not a consideration in the start. You have to just to choose what power supply you want. It's well described in the brochure, and then the next step is how many lights do you want to control, and we go all the way from from 2 to 60, if you will, so it's just a question of asking for that. Then the important side comes is how do you want to interface with it? Because with the power supply, the monitoring relays, you actually have the brains and the hardcore components of an NLC. But obviously, we as humans like to have a decent interface. And you know that you can have the classic push-button panel, as many of you have seen so many times, and we've made several hundreds of, and it's a solid, very strong system. Or you can have the Mimic web server, basically driven from a desire to get a mimic of the vessel with the appropriate lights, as you can see in the drawing behind me. And with both avenues, there come some choices, and they're well described, and that's something that Peter will go into depth with. When you got whether it's a push-button panel or a Mimic PC connected to a touchscreen, you as a individual can control the lights. You can see what is happening. You will get the alarms. You can operate the panel. Everything is good. But obviously, in some cases, you want to interface with that. And that's why we're so happy to have Peter here. He's joining us in just a moment to talk about how we interface and what is the options. We've agreed to give it an overview, a sense of possibility. If you want the how-to wiring and how-to programming, and that will be in a different webinar because it takes a little bit of time and possibly a different audience. We're covering the full range, so we have the absolute pleasure of being chosen for some autonomous vessels, and it's no shame to say that it was a bit of a hill to climb to get to a position to satisfy this type of customers. The good news is that that kind of learning and thinking that allows us to operate a autonomous vessels via a PLC protocol like Modbus, TCP/IP, trickles back to the rest of us to make things more automated, more simple, more straightforward. And there are some of the autonomous work that will also, in a more direct way, trickle down so that we in the future will be able to, imagine a tug where you have a tug and a push barge, but there is really no connection to the push barge. But if we can do it with a vessel that is several hundred kilometers away, we can also do it with a vessel that is 2 meters away. And there's some commercial options that are opening for us. The product is not ready yet, but it's something we are having high on our agenda. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Peter. He's I think he has this stuff here. So you got until 4 o'clock. So actually, you've got a generous piece of time here.
Hi everybody. You know, when you're familiar with our main product, the navigation lights, It could be the bigger ones like these, or it could be the smaller ones like these. You know, there's a big range. Now, all these lights, as you have seen over time, they need to be controlled in some way. And the second we say control, we also say interfacing. If we take the most basic installation we can think of, then we have a light, a battery, and in between light and the battery, in between a sorry.
I think they're okay.
And in order to control the light, we have a simple switch with wires between the power source, in this case the battery, and then the light. This is basically what happens on a small leisure boat. Now, we know that when it comes to larger vessels, commercial, anything, we also need to check and control the light. So we are absolutely certain that the light is actually functioning and everybody's happy. So to do that, we don't focus so much on the power source. It could be anything, as you know. Then we use instead of the switch, we put in our navigation light controller, the NLC. This is the most basic, simple form I could find in the warehouse today. But this is what many of you will be familiar with already in a somewhat larger steel cabinet. So this will then very often be controlled by a button panel. So still under the headline interfacing, this is the human machine interface where we interface to the system. We would like something to happen, we press a button. This one interfaces to that unit, and that unit interfaces to this unit, thereby controllable from pushing a button. It's actually quite basic. This is what happens in a typical NLC setup with the push button panel. Now we have done a few things because we found out that there can be a desire to have a better human interface than just a push button. So we have developed, as you know, another type of interface, which is another microprocessor, you could say, that feeds a video monitor, and on this video monitor we show an outline of the vessel and some programmable buttons and options. So here again we have human machine interface connected to this computer is part of that. It controls this one, that again controls the light. That's all good, that's fairly understandable, and it turns out to also to work in the real world. This is something we have realized that is actually quite basic or quite necessary in order to sell our basic product, which should only be the light. If we imagine a system set up so we can control lights here, we can actually simulate that on various ways, but also online on some secret web servers we have, where we can show exactly how you operate things using the touch panel. And Jan will now find that because he goes straight onto a web browser here, and he will share that screen with you in a second. Yeah.
Let's see the Lopolight.
It's 2 still. Oh, 8 to 5.
Okay, we'll just share the screen.
And this is something you could actually do sitting with a client. You can get access to a computer, or you can bring your laptop or your whatever device you have, and then you can log on to these servers that simulate exactly a 100% real system. So I think you can see the vessel here, and the basic idea is that we can take any PNG file. So it could be anything, and the customer can arrange it themselves. We use that as a background picture. That is the individual vessel. So in this case, a supply ship could easily be replaced by a push tug or a sailing ship or whatever vessels you would like to show. And the next thing is that we arrange this in a way so we make what we call group buttons here, where we define a certain button. And the way it is, as you might imagine, meant to operate port, starboard, stern, masthead lights. And if you press that button, you will see that it turns red first, and then all the lights are coming on. Now we will see an error in a second because we simulate a 40 stern light here. As you can see now, no. And normally this would mean that there's an audible alarm as well. So I mute the audible alarm, and then I remove the error condition here. We could also go in and now you can see here the spare light in the set, the secondary stern light has kicked in. Of course, we can turn on our not on the command lights. They're being represented here on the screen just as a dot, and that dot is actually just a little GIF that the customer can make any little GIF they like. We can turn this off, and in this case, I have programmed it in a way so when we hit the anchor situation, when we turn on the anchor, it will automatically turn off the underway button. I think I've done it here. Let's see. So underway turns off automatically, and now we have our anchor light. Only one anchor light in this case, but it's sort of a demonstration purposes. Our mod here, if we're around, and we can even program a little all-off button. When you come into port and everything is supposed to be turned off, then you have a positive indication that everything is off. There are no limits to how many buttons we can set up here. It could be a dredging on starboard side, dredging on port side, all kind of things. It could be a tugboat towing over 200 meter and under 200 meter, all these various combinations. Because what happens is actually we go in here and in the managed side, it normally it's password protected because it's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen every day on an everyday basis so that you go in here and this. So if I go into the light groups, you could see before, you will recognize the I don't recognize anything, but right now it's not going in there. Just a second. So here you recognize the text you just saw on the main page where you go underway. Let's take that. If I go in and edit that, which is super simple, then we start defining what shall happen when I activate the underway group button. In this case, nothing shall happen to the not under command set of lights. But the anchor lights, the anchor light group, I would like that to turn off. Nothing happens to the portable anchor. So some text we put in here, and all off. Of course, that has a special meaning. So here we can simply set up very simple what every group button shall do when you press it. I need to go back to the camera if I can do that.
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
Now, this is, so the only thing we should show here was actually to show you and give you a little impression that we can really control things in a very detailed way when using this interface. If we go back to the first interface, the old one, which is still very popular, it's a little limited. We cannot show you a picture of the ship, for instance. Now, we have learned that customers, once it starts, the project starts to ripe out and they have very often a desire to interface again to our systems. It could be in simple NMEA 0183 that goes into these systems. We can see the status every second, as on any other NMEA telegram that you quite like to know. We can control a few things with it. We can do the same if we use the button panel. We can actually control quite a few things via this old-fashioned but quite efficient NMEA interface. But now these days we also see that some systems, typically a double-ender ferry, we would like to have an interface which consists of, again, another computer that sits on the defined wheelhouse, and these two systems, they then talk together. So we have one monitor on the wheelhouse number one, and another computer, another monitor in wheelhouse number two. They communicate via a web interface. So it's HTTP protocol basically, which is an interface. In some cases, we would have customers coming in and say they would like to control things from typically a PC-based environment. That could be where they use the web server in the main system here and the web browser in their system, but it could also come down to what you call APIs, and you would not necessarily know what an API is. It's a data command you can send via Ethernet. But I tell you, many of your clients, they would have some technical department that will be quite thrilled when they find out that they now have really a very fine way of accessing our systems from their existing backbone system on a ship. Another group of customers, they don't want to use APIs for some reason. They would like to use a PLC, some standard PLC. I've just seen something here. It could be anything. And they also need to interface to our main control units. And now, and that's what Jan just mentioned short or briefly, we can offer a Modbus via TCP/IP, as it's called. And again, all these words, you don't necessarily have to remember them, but you will find out that many of the big customers, they will by themselves ask about these things, and we're getting even closer to be able to say yes in all cases, no matter what interface they prefer. And there are more options. We can also, instead of the push button panel here, we have the little smart control, as we call it, which is basically the same, but easier for certain types of customers to interface with little push buttons. They build up their own panels. So what started out being something we just needed to control the light here with a little rocker switch, to position, and a motorcycle battery, has now turned into computers and touch screens and push buttons and options and interfaces. But the main buzzword is actually interfacing, and it has turned out that because we can come up with all these solutions, we do get the projects, and that's even in front of very, very big competing companies.
That's absolutely perfect. The story is from a commercial side very straightforward. The chance of us being able to answer any request from a customer is yes, they are there. We have the solutions. We've been through a number of challenges, installations, especially on gray ships, also those who are not always on the surface. We've been through all, we think, all together, but all the various intricacies there is. We remain humble about every project and every challenge, but we do believe that we have the ability to say yes to any NLC challenge that people will find. And as you will have registered, we mean business. The pricing of the NLCs have continuously decreased over time, and it's a acknowledgement of that we want volume, and therefore we also we man up on the production side, and we are ready to take your orders, and we will do everything we can to do them in time. With every electronic device and every system, we are going through a learning curve, and if you find anything that you do not, you can't figure out, or you think there's a wrong alarm or something, we want to know, because we are fixing bugs, and it's a very stable system today, and we want to have it to continue this way. But as you can imagine, when complication increases, the number of cutting stations or the number of interfaces, the complexity also increases. So give us your feedback and let us learn together. But I said in the beginning, we will in a short while invite for a technical seminar. We have done these in the past with good success. They are longer. They are more defined against the technical community, which understand those acronyms that Peter was throwing about.
Yeah, so basically you could say that include the wiring going between all these things and the data protocols and all these things. That's
yeah. But thanks a lot. Happy to have you today. We will make this video available together with the others. I think we can do a better job of making the videos available. I just discussed with Morten, our marketing manager, to put them out on a YouTube channel that is not directly accessible, but with a link you can find them all. And so if you have trouble sleeping, there's a remedy. But
and we should also introduce in a little mail to you how to use the simulated servers for this, so you can show a customer on site how quite precisely how his layout and his human interface would be in the area.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks a lot. We will terminate a little earlier than anticipated, but and we will deliver a newsletter once more before the summer closure, and then we will have a summer closure of 2 months with no newsletters and webinars, and we'll come back breathing fire sometime in August, late August, September. So thanks a lot, and have a good day.